Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Here we go, back season 3, episode 4 on Life's Essential Ingredients. And we have a treat for you today. Prit Madhukar is coming from Bangalore, India. Pashito, it's 8:09 as we record this right now, our time on the West Coast in California. And Prit, it's 9 about 40 over there at her time. And so thank you so much for just coming on the show and starting your day off with a little bit of Life's Essential Ingredients.
Thank you so much, Jeff and Mike. I'm super excited to be here and share my story, share my essential ingredient with your audience as well.
Love it. Love it. And first off, listeners, we always start with where you can find our guest. And she is all over the place. I would run out of time if I told you everywhere where you can find her. Let me just send you to her to kind of where she is most of the time. First is her website, themarketingnomad.co, themarketingnomad.co, and then her podcast, The Marketing Nomad Show. So about our guest, Prit completed her engineering degree only to realize her true purpose in life was in marketing. She followed her passion and earned her MBA with a concentration in marketing at Rochester Institute of Technology. Prit made it her mission to empower other digital entrepreneurs and business owners with marketing, business, and mindset shifts to help her clients grow their businesses. Her writing, videos, podcast episodes share a real and authentic insight into her personal and professional life. Prit's focus is to inspire others to pursue their own entrepreneurial journeys. Prit is a marketer, business owner, entrepreneur, author of 0 to 4 Figures, Lessons Learned by a Broke CEO. Definitely got a great sense of humor. I can already know this is going to be a lot of laughs. Podcaster, YouTuber, Etsy shop owner, Skillshare teacher, and influencer with a zest for life, passion for marketing, and an aim to travel the world while building her business empire. That's what we're talking about, Pasho. Prit states that her book will comfort the reader on their journey and show them that somewhere in the world, there's a digital entrepreneur named the Marketing Nomad, albeit a little bit quirky, who's cheering them on. Prit, congrats on chasing your dreams, sharing your purpose, and for being our guest on Life's Essential Ingredients. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. Yeah, you got it, man. You are moving and shaking and doing a little bit of everything. And I love it. I love it. So Prit, we always start with the thought of the day. And it's a quote after me kind of researching you and say, oh man, that one seems to fit you well. So no pressure, but we're season 3. I think I said episode 4, and we're 100%. On these. And so I want you to be honest. If I get it right or wrong, you can, I'm big enough to take it. So here we go. It's a great one from George Bernard Shaw. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I've got a hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it over to future generations.
That's really beautiful. And I think that really resonates with me. I believe that we're just given one life and we're given a couple of years on this earth, on this planet. We've got to make the most of it. And I love that flaming torch, if I'm not wrong, if I said that correctly. But that's beautiful. And I think we've got to make the most of our time here.
And it sure looks like you're doing that. I thought about, that quote. I've used that in other parts, not on this show, I don't believe. And just when I see that you're doing all these things, I was like, yeah, this young lady is just carrying this torch and she's igniting other people's torches as she goes along the way. And I just have this beautiful visual of you being on this journey and just igniting another torch with your business expertise. And now I'm going into another country, another torch, and then just I see you up on like a mountain looking down, and you just see all these torches going with all the people that you've influenced and helped. So congrats on that. But let's get into you. And I'll let you interpret this any which way you want. But what was life like growing up? And you take that any which way you want.
Okay, so I grew up in Singapore, and it was a pretty comfortable life, to be honest with you. Maybe the first few years, my parents struggled to make ends meet, but after I think I was about 6 or 7 years, we started to get into a very comfortable life. We moved back to India when I was 11 years old, and again, pretty normal life, teenage life. A lot of self-inflicted, I guess I would say, pressures on myself, as well as drama, the typical teenage girl stuff. And then, the society that I grew up in, you can either become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. That's just how everybody works. And that's just the career paths that everyone respects. So I don't say that my parents pressured me because they really didn't care that much. But I think I put this insane amount of pressure on myself to take up engineering, and I did. And within 2 years of getting into engineering, I realized it was not for me. I was not passionate about this. And this is where the quote that you just said comes in, Jeff. I think this is how I've always been all my life. I want to, find things that I'm passionate about. That's very important for me. I want to live a life that is filled with passion. And so at that time, at the age of 20 years, I realized that I was not passionate about engineering. Either way, I still completed and I got that degree. But somewhere in the middle, somewhere during my summer holidays, I was feeling very dejected. I was scared because everybody around me seemed to have their life figured out. And here I was, unable to find a path that I wanted to see the next 40 years of my life. And so it was during the summer holidays, I was just, kind of lying around the house, doing nothing. And my dad, he's a very typical Indian parent. He comes up to me and he says, why don't you, go get an internship? Maybe you might find this field interesting. And I said, with the marks that I'm getting, I don't think anyone's going to hire me. And of course, that's a joke. My dad laughed. My mom was not amused. But the next day, both my parents are business owners. I just have to mention this. My dad took me to his company and he said, sit down here for a minute. I'll go get an employee. And I was really pissed off because one, I didn't want to have anything to do with engineering. I wanted to spend my summer holidays just laying around. I didn't want to do any work. And, but still I went because, well, he's my dad and I got to listen to him and I wasn't independent of him at that point. And so I went and then he got this employee and he said, whatever the employee asks, just do it for him. And so I went. It started out with little things, correcting the English on the website. My dad's company was trying to make their mark on social media. Social media was just introduced then. This was way back in 2012, if I'm not wrong. And so I helped them with creating the posts for social media, the captions, and those little things. And I didn't even realize how 8 hours a day would just fly by. And I absolutely loved every single minute of it. I didn't know it was called marketing at the time, but I just enjoyed it. I even went back voluntarily. My dad was super surprised. Voluntarily the next 2 summers, as I completed my degree. And even during that time, I was very involved in college fests. I'm a Bollywood dancer. So I was choreographing flash mobs every single year. I was doing the outreach. I was going out physically on the streets and letting people know about our fests. Again, marketing and sales, did not know it at that point of time. And so after I got my degree, it was very clear that this was not the field that I wanted to spend the rest of my life in. And so I started looking at other options. I had always been inclined to start my own business someday. I'd seen my parents growing up as entrepreneurs. And so it was a very natural progression for me to take up that route as well. It was something that I was very interested in. So I decided to do my MBA. I applied. I didn't apply to a single job in the engineering field. I was very clear that this was just one path that I was taking, no plan B at that point. Very lucky for me, I got into a couple of universities and I chose Rochester Institute of Technology, which is upstate New York. So girl from India flew to US for the American dream. And midway through my MBA program, I was sitting in a marketing class, the first marketing class, and my professor's up there. She's asking questions just to gauge the class. And there I was, like a total nerd, raising my hand for every single question that she was asking. And it was amazing to me because, one, I didn't think I had any marketing knowledge. And number two, I realized that all through my life, my brain or my mind had absorbed things about marketing without even me realizing. And it wasn't normal marketing questions. It was like Coca-Cola campaign 10 years ago or Maggie campaign 3 years ago. And I knew all of these things. It was weird. And that was that light bulb moment that every single person has when they find their passion, right? And it was in that moment that I made a promise to myself, all those years of confusion, of fear, of just being so lost. I promised myself that I would never, ever take my passion for marketing for granted. And so my story actually begins there, my entrepreneurial story, but I just needed to give you guys a little bit of a backstory. So every single international student in the US, they're given 1 year of what we call OPT, practical training. It's completely optional. And of course, I decided to take it on. It's 1 year of your student visa that you're allowed to work on. And after that, your employer has to sponsor a work visa, and then you can continue working. So I got into a great job, a great solar firm, on Long Island. And I had such a fantastic time, made great friends, had amazing colleagues. I absolutely loved my CEO as well. He was a very passionate person. And, I resonated with that level of passion as well. So my employer, they sponsored the visa, they applied for it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, at this point, it did not get processed. It's a lottery. Okay. So in that year, I think it was 2019, there were 200,000 applications and only 85,000 were projected to be processed. Mine wasn't one of them. At that point, I was absolutely devastated. I was in a lot of pain, a lot of anguish, a lot of frustration. I mean, I'd just gotten my life figured out, right? And all of a sudden, it's this curveball that I wasn't expecting at all. I just assumed I would get the visa and I would work through the visa and all of those things. And it was in that time I was at ground zero at that point. And I thought to myself, well, it can go either way. One, I can put my resume on LinkedIn. But number two is I'm at this unique position where I'm at ground zero. I could actually start something on my own rather than waiting 5 or 10 years down the line. If it does not work out in 1 year, I can always go back to applying, putting my resume on LinkedIn. And so it was in that moment, it was a very split-second decision. And I think that just summarizes my entire life as well. It was a very, I wouldn't say impulsive because I took some time to think about it, but once I decided that was it, there was no looking back for me. And so I decided to start on my own. And I tried it for a year. I tried freelancing for a year. I started my own YouTube channel. I started on Instagram. And within a year, it was pretty clear that something was working for me. And then a year later, while I was in India, because I had to come back, right? While I was in India, I set up my company in Delaware, USA. So my company is in USA, but I'm location independent. And right now I'm just currently living in India. And after I started my company, I started spreading my wings completely. I was free. I started my own Etsy shop. I started teaching on Skillshare. I started my own podcast. And basically there was no looking back for me. It's been about 3.5 years now. I've accomplished so much in so little time, but I think I would attribute that to the amount of pain and anguish that I felt at that point. I just wanted to make it big no matter where I was in the world. And I think that fueled a lot. Of course, it's been a long time now. I've healed from most of it. Now it's just more so taking full advantage of the opportunity that's given to me, of the choices that I can make in my life to change it for the better. So that's a snippet of my journey. And here I am today.
Holy smoke, snippet. I don't even know how to unpack that. That's like a thesis for your doctorate. It's like, holy smokes. But let me just, I don't know anything about marketing, and I definitely need your help. But let's just look at a few of the things that you do, because there's only 24 hours in the day. So you have your podcast, you have
Yes.
business in India and in Delaware, the Etsy shop, the Skillshare teacher, the YouTuber, and I'm sure the podcast and YouTube probably go hand in hand, and then
I
the
know.
author. And so I don't even want to have you focus on any of those other than what's a typical day look like. Let's start with that. You know,
Okay,
yeah.
the YouTube and the podcast are completely different, actually. YouTube is more vlogging, but podcast is more mindset, business, marketing strategy. So totally different things. I think my typical day is very, very different every single day, to be honest with you. And I think that's what I like about this life. But usually it starts, I've started to start early, I guess I would say, this year. But last year, I think I usually work about 12 to 14 hours every single day on a good day. But I also understand when I need to really just take a break. So it's my choice at the end of the day. If I feel like working, it goes on till 14 hours. When I was writing my book, it was 16 hours. And, I would do 3 days of 16 hours and then take a break for the remaining couple of days. So it's really my choice at the end of the day. What I would say to people out there is start one step at a time. I didn't start all of these channels at the same time. It started out with my YouTube channel. Once that stabilized, I started my podcast. Once that stabilized, I had a process for that. Then I went on to Etsy and then so on and so forth. So until you have a set process for every single channel that you're on, don't start the next one because that's just going to overwhelm you. At the same time, this is something that I believe in, and this is my motto for my life as well. I keep it as simple as possible. That's it. I don't make it complicated. I don't make it more than I have to. I don't put in more effort than I need to. And that's how I'm able to manage. If it needs 3 hours of my time, it's going to get 3 hours and not more than that. So on and so forth. So understand what's the simplest path that you can take for anything that you do in your life, not just, having multiple channels, or even if it is with this podcast, keep it as simple as possible. But at the same time, make sure that you're not compromising on the effect and the power. So that is one advice I think I would give, something that I personally follow even for my life as well.
And I love that. And maybe you can give me a quick tip, and I'm a children's book author. And so this show is part of a nonprofit. And we use pizza to kind of build community and bring people together. And so we have a couple different arms of doing this pizza stuff, these gatherings, which are a lot of work. This podcast, which is a little bit of work, but still, and then the book and trying to do some work with that. And I feel like all those kind of have to go hand in hand, but I also feel like I get pulled in a little bit of different directions. And I'm trying to keep it simple, like you're saying, but I think everything gets watered down. And I don't know, and I don't do any social media. So nobody even knows about what we do because I'm just trying to do what we do and keep it simple. And then I don't even know if this makes sense to you, but nobody even barely knows about it because I don't do all the other stuff that perhaps I should be doing. In a nutshell, what advice would you give me based upon what I just shared with you?
I would say keep talking about it. That's one way to go about it. Trust me, whether you are, having conversations with people in person, you don't necessarily have to be on social media, though I would recommend it as a marketer. But, if you are at the stage where you don't have time for that to fit into your schedule, or you don't have a process for that yet, I would say keep talking about it. As much as you think it annoys everybody, trust me, people need to hear it at least 7 times for it to register in their mind. So whether it's your children's book author, try to mention it in every episode that you bring a guest on. Like, for example, right now, that's a fantastic example. What your podcast, when you're talking to other people, when you're talking to me, for example, maybe you could ask me to share this podcast with my followers, or you can ask me for suggestions to bring on more guests on your podcast where you talk to them more about what you do. I would say don't stop talking about your products or your services. That is one mistake that I see people making. They think that once is enough, or they think that they're bothering people by talking more about it. It's really not. It takes 7 times for you to mention it, to at least register. Forget thinking about taking an action towards it. So the more you can talk about it, the more you can fit it into your conversations, the more you can put yourself in a position to talk about it. that would be my biggest advice. So it's not necessarily on social media, even in-person events, attend events, talk about what you do. Don't be afraid, don't be ashamed, and, just put your work out there. You've spent so much time and energy into it, and you believe in it. You're a nonprofit. I really think that should even give you a bigger boost, because you're doing it because you're passionate about it. So that would be one big advice that I would give you. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'll take it. I know you got my Pasho fired up. He's got some questions for you.
Sure.
Prit, I just got to ask, we take my Pasho, for example. And first of all, I'm impressed that he is still awake. Usually about this time, he wants to go to sleep. But going back to what you said, you were loving what you're doing. You were putting 12, 14, 16 hours into a day, where most of us just can't do that. Can people still be successful, like my Pasho right here? Can he still do it, and he has to sleep if he doesn't put that much time into it?
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Like I said, the 12, 14, 16 hours are only on the days that I feel I can do it. The other days, the days that I don't probably talk about, sometimes it's 4-hour days, sometimes it's 3-hour days, sometimes it's 8-hour days. I would say your best is going to look different every day. You've got to acknowledge that. Today, it's going to be me in my pajamas, watching some Netflix, and I would still count that towards my work mindset, because I'm taking the time to rest. It really doesn't matter how many hours you spend, as long as you're doing quality work. For me, at the time of publishing my book, because I really had a deadline to hit, I needed to put in those hours. But I also, like I told you, 4 days a week, I was out, I was off, and I was not doing any work after 3 days of 16-hour days. So if you count it that way, I still complete the whole, I guess I would say 40 hours a week. But it really depends on how you take it. Work to your, abilities or your strengths. That's something that I always put it across. For me, I can't work more than 2 complete weeks in a row. I need to take a break in between. For you, it could be different. You could need a break every 10 days. You could need a break every 3 days. Work to what works for you. That's what I would always say. And it is accomplishable, because you are working to your strengths. At the end of the day, this is what I believe. If you're working to your strengths, there's nothing like it.
I love it. Hey, let's change it up a little bit. Let's get into the show. It's called Life's Essential Ingredients. And listeners, we appreciate you listening in. Somehow we're in 38 countries now, Pasho, 550 something cities. And we have amazing guest, Prit, sharing her essential ingredients. So what are those, Prit?
Okay, I think I have one essential ingredient that I basically rule my entire life. And that is, there is this unshakable and possibly bordering on crazy belief in myself. That's it. It just starts and ends with that. Whatever it is, I trust myself to find a way, whether it is trusting myself to accomplish the task, trusting myself to find help if I can't figure it out, trusting myself that something along the way will, kind of pop to me and I'll figure out what to do. It's unshakable. It's crazy. But it exists, and it's always existed, this belief in myself. And I would encourage every single person out there. I think for me, one theme in my life is everything around me has always been uncontrollable. Everything has just shaken up within a second's notice. And that's kind of been a theme in my life. The H-1B work visa, that was just one episode out of at least 10 I can name that have changed my life in a split second. And so for me, the only thing that is stable and that I can trust is myself in those situations. So I bank on myself 100% or even 1000%, if the math works out. So that is my most essential ingredient, believing in myself and trusting that I will find a way somehow.
I love it. So it sure sounds like, regardless of what the challenge is that you're thrown up against, you quickly go, hey, how can I solve this problem? Because you have the solution inside yourself, whether that actually comes from you or finding someone that can provide insight on how to help me solve this problem. And it sounds like you don't waste any time nickel and diming, second guessing, or even thinking about, why is this going on with me? Nope. Hey, I got to solve this problem. All right. Can I do it, or who can help me? And that's huge, because it sounds like it just goes with everything that you got going on with having all these different components to who you are as a person and an entrepreneur. You don't really have time to waste your energy into negative thoughts and things. So yeah, I love that. Let's get into your book a little bit. And first of all, congrats on writing it. I think a lot of people have an idea that they would like to write a book, but then life happens, and then maybe they get a couple chapters going, but then aren't able to complete it. So my question is, walk us through what you felt when you received the author's copy delivered to your house, and oh man, I got it and it's done. Yes. What did that feel like for you?
Oh my God, I cried. I cried so much. I don't know. Maybe you would be able to resonate with this because you're an author yourself too, Jeff. But I was not expecting how emotional this journey was going to be, publishing my first book. I mean, I always knew I'd publish a book someday. So I thought I was mentally prepared for when it would get published. I mean, I knew since the age of 7. And so for me, the entire journey was very, very emotional, because in a lot of ways, the book represented how much I had healed from everything that had happened in my life for the past decade. And it's been one whirlwind after another. And so the book represented closure in a way. It represented healing, and it represented how much I could do if I just put my heart into it. And so I was very, very emotional. I cried so much. And, I was even documenting my journey, and I was telling people, I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm just crying. And I think that was all the closure, I think, for me more so. And I started this journey broke, as the title says. And for me to have, there were a couple of months where I was earning $0. I'm going to be very frank with you. And, to have built a business from $0 to $10 a month to $100 a month, and then $500, and then $1,000, for me, it was, I think when you're actually going through it, you don't realize it until you stop and you look back and you're like, oh, this is what I've accomplished. And for me, I think it was that moment. What the book represented was 30 years of my life, just enclosed. So it was a beautiful feeling, but there was just a lot of crying, and it was very, very messy for me.
I love it. I love it. And thanks for sharing that. I can feel you. And it's exciting time. But so again, listeners, it's 0 to 4 figures, lessons learned by a broke CEO. And I know you have 61 lessons that are in the book. Maybe pick a couple of them that you think the listeners would resonate with or take something from. And obviously they can go out and hopefully buy the book. Again, best way, just go to her website, themarketingnomad.co, and you can buy her book on any platform that sells books, and you can see them all over her website as well. So yeah, get in a couple of the lessons.
Absolutely. So for me, like I said, I started this journey broke. And when I started it out, I realized that there weren't a lot of materials to cater to the initial 4 figures of growing your business. A lot of the times people were mostly talking about 6 or 7 figures, or that was the mark that you needed to hit to feel successful. And one of the things that I have realized on my journey is that you get to define your success. And that is what the main theme of my book is. It's 0 to 4 figures. A lot of people, they assume it to be 0 to 6 figures or 7 figures, but no, mine's 0 to 4, because that's where I am at right now. And I am able to write that book because I have defined my milestones, my success myself, especially in the entrepreneurial world. It's just so much of pressure out there that, okay, I've got to hit 6 figures. And until then, I'm not a success, or I can't view myself as a success. And my book actually debunks that myth. It says, wherever you are, even if you're earning $250 a month, even if you're earning $1,000 a month, you are a success. The very fact that you've started this journey from scratch, you are doing it in and out, you're working on it, you are following your passion, that itself is a success. And so that's one of the things, one of the highlights of my book. Another thing is most of us, especially those of us who are inclined towards the entrepreneurial journey, we spend our lives looking for something that we are passionate about. It's very innate. I believe that the whole entrepreneurial spirit is not taught. We're just born with it. And so some of us, and me included, we can spend our lives panicking and being in fear that we haven't found our passion yet to start something on our own. And one of the things that I talk about is you've got to give yourself that space and that time to recognize and find your passion. It's going to happen someday, I promise you. But in this moment of confusion, just hang in there, hang on to the trust, and, maybe take a second to think back about all the times that you've done something that you were unimaginably happy, but you didn't think that maybe you could monetize it as a career, or maybe those moments where you were at complete peace doing something. So for me, it took me 6 years for me to realize my passion for marketing, and turns out I'd been doing it all my life. I just didn't realize it was marketing. So give yourself that space and that time to recognize your passion. These are a couple of things out of the 61 lessons that I have learned in the first 3 years of my entrepreneurial journey. And I think that's one more thing. If I can list out 61 lessons from just 3 years of entrepreneurial journey, I mean, isn't that a success in itself? And it's just how you view it. So start today, think about the little things that you're doing that can actually be perceived as big by you. Think about those and perceive those as successes, because they absolutely are. So I hope you take the time to read my book. It's got my journey. It's got stories from my childhood that have influenced my role as a business owner. It's got various topics: self-love, positive mindset, growth mindset, business strategy, marketing. It's got every single incident that I have lived through my life and my entrepreneurial journey. And it's just there for you to read and feel like, okay, there's a friend out there who knows what I'm going through. So yeah, thank you so much, Jeff and Mike, for having me on your podcast.
Yeah. We're not done yet. Are you getting rid of us? Are you kicking us?
No.
You kicking us off? Look at this, Pasho. It's like, hey, boom, baby, that's it. We out. Yeah, Prit said, hey, douches. I came and said what I had to say. I'm out. Is that how we do it?
No, of course, let's go on. No, I thought maybe, that was the last question, but no, I'm so sorry. Yes,
let's
do it.
I'm just
ready.
messing with you. No, the guest we're here to just help people listen in and take a little tip and be able to apply it to their life. So yeah, I think I got all shook up with what I was going to ask you next with that one. Let's see, what's the difference in, if there is one? I know you said you have a business in Delaware and then you live in India, and I'm guessing you're bouncing back and forth. Is there any difference in what you do and even marketing, say, in India versus Delaware?
Yeah, definitely. So even though I'm in India, all my clients are in North America. So one thing that I've understood is America, in terms of marketing specifically, is about 10 years ahead. So people are more open to investing in a marketing strategy consultant in North America than they are here in India. At the moment, India is now starting to recognize the need for marketing, the importance of marketing. And then they're now looking for management aspect of it. They've not yet come to the part of overall strategy, at least for the small businesses. The bigger businesses, yes, they've kind of been influenced by the North American market, but for the small businesses, and that's what I cater to actually, there's still a little bit of mindset shift that needs to happen when it comes to marketing strategy. So even though I'm in India right now, most of my clients are in the US, and that's the fundamental difference between the two of them, the openness to hiring a marketing strategy consultant. But I'm pretty sure India's going to get there in about a year or two. I mean, the pandemic really sped things up, I would say, in terms of being open to shifting their entire business online, or even at least having that avenue. So that's definitely one thing that came out of the pandemic that was helpful for me in a way for my career.
Yeah, well, definitely. If you're saying that you feel India is going to be up to speed, so to say, with marketing. And now you're getting all this experience in the US, and that's just only going to help you. Hey, well, I've done this, and this for my clients in the US. And now you just apply what you've done, and you kind of have the blueprint. But let's share one of those blueprints. Let the listeners know, perhaps a client, not to give any names, but that you worked with, that they came to you and like, all right, Prit, help us, market this. And then you knocked out the project and they loved it. And you got home and you were just like, yes, and felt so good about what you're doing. Share one of your top success stories.
Absolutely. So I mostly work with solopreneurs or one-man teams. So that's where my niche is. The people that I work with, they're not a very big company. And even if they're a smaller company, it's maybe 3 people maximum. So the kind of strategies that I have in place are not the ones that you see on the internet. They're not cookie cutter solutions, because one, you've got to focus on just one person managing it all. And that's something that I sort of have experience with as a solopreneur myself. So that's my area of expertise. There was one client that I remember. This one was actually surprisingly not in US, but this was in Philippines. So this client, they were starting on their own, and they really wanted the entire blueprint on how to start, because there were just so many channels. They were an online coach. There were so many channels that they could be on: YouTube, podcast, Instagram, and all of those things. They were really confused. And one of the things that I helped them with was figuring out which was the platform that was ideal for their area, their niche. And, if I could give any advice at this point for people out there who are looking to get started, I would say look at where your audience is. That's one aspect of it. Number 2, work to your strengths. If you're really good with speaking to other people, maybe you would want to have some guest podcasts. You want to get started on that. If you are really good on camera, you enjoy being on camera, then you might want to try YouTube. So having a nice balance with what your strengths are, as well as where your audience is and can find you, that's usually a good starting point. And so we started with that. One of the mistakes that I personally do see a lot of people doing is they try to implement all the marketing strategy that's on the internet. Unfortunately or fortunately, it does not really work when you are a solopreneur. I had to figure this out the hard way when I started out. I'd come from a full-time job, and so I was trying to implement all of those marketing strategies for myself, for my business. They didn't work out. What I realized was, when you are starting on your own, you've got to find one central point for your marketing. It has to start with one point, and then you create paths from there. And so when I started out, like I said, I started out with Instagram. That was my starting point. And then from there, I started creating paths to YouTube. Then I started my podcast, and then so on and so forth. All of these platforms need to be interlinked as well. So you've got to make sure that whatever you're talking on your podcast, you're mentioning it on maybe another platform that you're on, and you're leading them to maybe your website and your other platforms. Don't focus on one platform by itself. You have to make sure that they interlink, they kind of web in together. So that also comes under marketing strategy. So I worked with her for about 6 months, and we managed to create, I guess I would say, an ecosystem of marketing. It was a completely self-sustaining system. And it was one of the first big projects that I got. This was about 2.5 years before. And that really gave me the confidence boost that I needed, that, okay, I can do this. I just have to narrow down my niche and only help people that I know I can help. That was also very important for me. And that is something that I've continued. So that was one, oh, yes, I can do this. That was the moment that I kind of said, okay, Prit, you've got this. You can continue on this path.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Well, let's fast forward, let's say 60, 70 years, and you're the best marketer in all of India. And you have people coming so far to work with you. And you're on your deathbed now, and you've done your thing. And there's a quote that we like to end the show with by John Alston. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. What is it you want your family, your parents, your clients to know that you stood for?
That I followed my passion till the very end. That's it. That's just one thing, because that's what I built my entire business on: passion for marketing, passion for travel. And every single thing that I have done since then was just follow my heart. And at my deathbed, I want people to look at me and said, yes, she really did that. She really stayed true to her passions, plural, yes, stayed true to her passions, and she followed her heart all through. That's all really, I would call that a very successful life, regardless of the money in my bank account or what monetary or physical things or materialistic things I leave behind. Regardless of that, I would call that a very successful life if I have followed my heart all throughout and I have followed all of my passions.
I love it. Pashito, get us out of here, baby.
Wow. Prit, thank you so much. It's just incredible to sit here and listen. You exude energy and confidence, and you really help us see your passion. And man, I just wish everyone could have that kind of passion. I'm still working on it. I'm going to get there one day, though. But you told me it's okay. Take your time. So I'm going to take some more time, figure it out. But thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff and Mike. And for those of you listening all the way up until here, thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you.
Yep. And again, you can find her, the marketingnomad.co. She also has her podcast, The Marketing Nomad Show. And that's been another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. Pasho, you know how we do it, baby. Boom. We out.